what does a good, ideal sales kickoff meeting look like?
Well, I think it starts with planning, right? It starts with, understanding what is your strategy and what are your objectives for the year. So your sales kickoff may or may not change year over year, depending on your strategy and what your objectives are. For us this year, we actually have a pretty sizable difference of how we're going to market. So it's critical that for our sales kickoff that I'm very clear on what we're trying to do, what our strategy is, how we're going to market, because that's going to affect behavior, right? And behavior of all the sales reps. The other thing, this isn't part of Blueprint, but I think it's just in general, it's just, be inspiring, right? Like set the tone that, people can get excited about. You want them to come out of this, right? When you sit down and you say, okay, what do we want this sales kickoff to be? The first thing you should start is like, what do we want the result to be? Like, what do we want to have happen, right? And I think for us, what we want is we want our sales team to come out of this excited, really motivated to try new things, because we are going to be doing some things, and sometimes that's hard, right? Is get salespeople to do things differently, or get anybody to do anything. And I think part of the key for this too is really trying to understand what's in it for them. And this is where I work with my leadership all the time, because we tend to basically say, hey, this is everything you need to know in order to be successful and meet our objectives. But you got to really kind of step around to the other side of the table and say, okay, if I'm hearing this for the first time, or I'm hearing it, what's in it for me? And most of the times it's not just commission, right? It's not just about making money. It's like everybody has motivation to achieve something. And I've known many salespeople who will negotiate comp plans every single year. And at the end of it's an excruciating process. And when you're done, they put it away and then they don't talk about it. and then they actually execute on different things during the year. So the key is really trying to understand like what's in it for your sales team, what's in it for your staff, right? And I think about this not just as sales kickoff, but company kickoff, right? And so we have our kickoff on the 25th, I think, in about 2 weeks. We're working on it right now. We're putting a lot of time and effort into it. Is like how do we put together a strategy that is achievable, right? One thing you don't want to do is you don't want to say, hey, here's what we're trying to achieve, and everyone's like, yeah, good luck with that. That's a motivation killer. Make sure your objectives are achievable. Make sure that it's exciting and you're inspiring people, and make sure that it's delivered in a way that they know what's in it for them.
Now, your company provides IT consulting to Fortune 500s, to government agencies to help them run and scale their networks and their data centers. So are there new products or services that you introduce to the team, or new strategies on how to sell this year? Do you provide them with any kind of guidance like that during the sales kickoff, or is that breakout sessions or things like that?
Not normally in breakout sessions, because we're not a huge company. We've got about 150 people. And if you look at our sales team, it's obviously smaller than that. So I leave that up to our VP of sales to kind of follow up with the sales kickoff and the all hands meeting. But we are going to market differently this year, where we're focusing in on fewer number of partners. We're going deeper into these partner relationships. We're rolling out new marketing programs and lead gen programs. We're creating new offerings, not only to our customers, but through our partners, to help them in achieving their goals. So we've actually moved very far into a partner-driven strategy for this year. And it's not that we haven't been partner-aligned before. We're always partner-aligned, but we're going to have fewer partners and a much deeper relationship. So we have to help them understand what that means and what's expected of them.
Are you going to have any of your partners actually participate in your sales kickoff meeting too?
No, not this time around.
Okay, this is strictly just for the sales team. So who's involved? So you, as the CEO, would obviously give probably the opening, right? I'm guessing the kickoff, the welcome keynote. Who else gives talks and motivational speeches at your sales kickoff?
That's a very interesting question, because normally we do kind of a round robin, and I kick off. I do a key, and our we do all hands meetings, so we don't necessarily do a kickoff meeting and then don't meet again. We meet normally quarterly as a company, and we used to have a formula. I kind of kick it off and do a keynote, and then my general manager would do more operational updates and things like that. And then we go into sales and marketing and HR, and we have a foundation. My executive director will speak about the foundation. This year, though, we are kicking off a little bit differently. I'm actually going to probably run the majority of it. And my general manager is going to participate in some of the operational aspects of it. And then we're going to open up a QA session for everybody and bring the executive team onto that so they can answer specific questions about marketing or sales or something like that. What I kind of decided this year, and I'm always a big fan of getting my executive team out in front of everybody, right? And getting them known and getting people to know who they are. But I feel like this is such a pivotal year for us that we're doing some pretty bold things, and we can get into that later on why we're doing that, but doing some pretty bold things that the jumping around from executive to executive was just I felt like it was going to be kind of create a sense, break down some continuity of the message and what we're trying to do. So this is the first time in a number of years where I will be probably running 70% of the kickoff meeting with my general manager running the rest.
Yeah, that is a different format, because the ones that I've participated in, run myself, usually you've got the CEO, but then you've also got your VP of sales or the chief revenue officer. You've got the marketing team presenting what they're doing, and the product teams, engineering teams also presenting updates and roadmaps and things like that for people to be aware of. So it's interesting to hear that you're making that shift for the cohesiveness of the messaging. So have you already got a lot of the other messaging and things that you want people to do differently planned out, or that's what you're doing now as you prepare?
Yeah, I've already had at least one set of meetings with every executive. They put together their slides. They've sent them to me. We've gone through round 2. We're probably close to round 3, and we still have 2 more weeks left of planning to do. So we're taking this very, very seriously. Yeah. Their content will be in there, and I'm a pretty hands-on CEO, so I know a lot of what they're doing, and I'm helping them shape it into how it can be delivered. And one of the things that, again, to me is very important in this meeting, we're having in a couple of weeks, is really getting into the shoes of the staff, right? Helping them trying to understand what's in it for them. And to me, that's one of the most critical things to get out of this is, if we can connect with them and say, hey, this is what we need to do this year, this is how we're going to do it, and this is what it means to you, then I think that's a win, right, for us. And sometimes I understand that there's going to be areas that's going to be more digging into, right? And this is not a long meeting for us. This is not a, all-day kickoff meeting. This is a couple-hour meeting. And I'm really leaving it up to my executives after this to implement and work with their respective teams on execution of this strategy.
Now, a lot of companies report that they're struggling to get renewals. They're struggling to get new sales. The economic climate is different. Maybe there's a recession. Maybe we're already in one. I don't know. How do you think that the current economic climate is changing the message that CEOs need to convey to their teams?
Well, that's a good question, right? And I think you kind of have to start with the question, of, are we in a recession, right? Are we moving towards a recession? I don't know the answer to that. I believe that we're living in somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy that if you get enough people talking about a recession and they start believing it, then they're actually going to start making changes and they're going to start pulling back, and that's going to create the cycle. We've been through a lot of this stuff before, and And what I tell my team and continue to tell my team, and will tell them in 2 weeks, is that we need to understand that we're living in a time of volatility, right? But we also need to understand that we are not unique. I'm 56 years old, so I don't know how old you are, but I've been around the block for a little while.
We're in the same bracket there, Sean.
Yeah. I was born at the beginning of the Vietnam War. I actually lived overseas as when I was in middle school, as my dad was supporting war efforts for Vietnam. I grew up through the gas crisis of '79, where we had miles of cars lined up.
Yeah, I remember those
recessions in the early '80s. I was in college when Challenger blew up, and I remember exactly where I was. Mm-hmm. I remember where I was when we invaded Iraq or Kuwait or Kuwait because of Iraq. I was in Arlington when looking at the Pentagon as it was on fire during 9/11. Went through the Great Recession, .com bust in 2001. My point is that we are not unique in what's going on right now. And if we get comfortable in that, then we can step out of the anxiety and into the reality of every situation, every cycle like this has winners and losers, every single one of them. We just have to choose whether we're going to be the winners or the losers. And we have to decide, whether we're going to sit by and watch what happens and wait, or we're going to just keep doing the same thing, or we're going to adapt.
I think there's lots of research out there that shows, and in fact, I think Jim Collins in his book Good to Great even alluded to it, is that if you continue putting money into marketing and you continue plowing forward, even during a recession, the companies that do that come out significantly stronger after the recession is over. And I think the way the recession is defined, technically, we probably won't even know it until 6 months into it. And then the government will say, well, we have been in a recession for 6 months.
I've heard that they don't even know until after it's over, right?
Yeah.
So we have to basically, I totally agree. So, what are we doing? We are increasing our sales capability 300%. We're literally in the process right now of tripling our sales team. We're investing and increasing our inside sales organization, and we're investing heavily in marketing. And I've done that through. I started Windward in 1997. I've started 5 other companies since then, and that's the formula that's always worked for me, right?
Yeah.
To me, that gets people excited, right? And that's one of the big messages when we're talking at our all hands meeting coming up is we're not sitting back. We're not going to keep doing the same things. We're going to adapt, and we're going to adapt by taking some of this dry powder that we've been carrying around for a couple of years and deploying that capital into the company and into our sales and marketing efforts, and also into our people, right? And into training programs and things like that. And invest heavily in being proactive and change how we're going to market and change how we're aligning with our partners. And one of the things that I write a weekly email to to the entire company, and my New Year's email really kind of focused on 3 things. 2022 was not a great year for me in a number of ways. And one of the things that I kind of came out of that is relearning the fact that clarity and focus really are key, and growth are key to success. And so we are much clearer now than we were 12 months ago on what we're trying to do at Windward. We are very focused. We've jettisoned some activities that we were doing in the last few years, and we're not going to be doing them going forward. We're going to be adding things next year or this year that we haven't done in the past. And we're going to be investing in growth, not only the company, but also in our staff.
My next question to you was going to be, how do you create motivation? What do you say? How do you say it? But the moment you said, we're expanding our sales team 300%. I mean, if I'm a salesperson at your sales kickoff sitting and I'm hearing that, I'm loving it. I'm loving every word of that, because it shows we're growing. Be part of this company. This is why you're here. We're expanding. We're investing in our people. I love that you said you're going to be investing in your team to provide them with additional training opportunities, professional development. All that is pretty great. When you say there's some things that you're not going to be doing, without disclosing anything that's confidential, what could you share that you're no longer going to be doing this year?
We jettisoned some of our partners. We started that culling process actually beginning of last year, and really kind of decided in the last 3 months that even some of the remaining partners that we culled in the first round, we just don't feel are going to get us to where we need to go. Part of this is having our 5-year growth plan and how we get there, and asking the question is this partner going to help us get there? And some of them is a flat out no. So if it's not, why are we working with them? Great companies, love the people who work there, just not a good fit for who we are and what we're doing right now. How we've done some of our marketing.
Are these technology partners, or
yeah?
Are these technology partners?
Yeah, technology partners. Right. We do a lot of work with other software companies. We do work with software companies. We are ourselves we're a systems integrator, not a necessarily software development company. And how we've done some of our marketing in the past, where as some things that we've invested in marketing, we're just not doing in 2023. We're like, that's not, investing heavy in PR. I just don't think it's going to get us to where we need to go in the next, 12 to 24 months. Does that mean we're going to stop doing it altogether? No, because we have a 5-year plan, and marketing and PR and brand awareness is important. But I think we're moving into at least for us in the context of what we do, we're moving into an environment where we've got to be more hands-on. We've got to be a little bit more guerrilla warfare out there. We're doing a lot more account-based marketing now, which we haven't done in the past couple of years. So every facet of our business that we're looking at and saying, what do we need to stop doing, and what do we need to start doing, and what do we need to keep doing?
When you motivate your team, you've got a lot of positive momentum going forward. There's some companies that don't have that. What would you advise a CEO who's got to create motivation but doesn't have the positive story that we're actually growing? Maybe they're shrinking. What kind of words do you think they could say?
Well, you've got to develop a strategy and a vision of how you're going to reverse that. I don't know how else,
Pretty key.
I've been around for 25 years running Windward. We've had down years. In 2001, we got battered, and it's tough. It's hard, but you've got to, you as the leader need to set the vision, and you need to set, the tone of what you're trying to do. And if you don't have a good story like that, then I think you're going to have a tough time, because somebody else will, right? And we're in a very competitive job market right now. And if someone on my staff doesn't think that, Sean McDermott doesn't have the strategy and the vision, or doesn't agree with my strategy and vision, they're going to leave, right? I can't stop them, and nor do I want to, right? If you're not on board with what we're trying to do, then maybe someplace else is a better fit, and maybe we need to find someone who does, right?
I found that in my companies, when we talk about all of the strategic roadmap, not just for the way we're going to go acquire clients, but where our product's going and how it helps our customers, and the new things that are on the roadmap, when we're going to be deploying those. Some of the stuff might be confidential. Hey, this is what's coming out in Q1, Q2. I find that actually gets teams very excited as well. So those are just some of the ways that I found to motivate people. And if you have to retrench, you just got to show the plan. Well, we're retrenching. We're not retreating. We're figuring out how to go forward, and this is the path. And I think you're right. People look for that level of leadership. What are some of the common struggles and maybe some of the mistakes that you see leaders make in their annual kickoffs?
I think one of I touched on this before, is knowing your audience, right? Who you pitching, because you're pitching, right? You're pitching an idea, you're pitching a future that you're trying to get people to get excited about, right? So know your audience, right? And know what they want, right? And maybe if it's you're pitching to your sales team, or that's one persona, right? Think about it as selling, right? You're selling to your customers, and who are the type of customers you're trying to sell to? I'm trying to sell to the CIO of this company. Let's build a persona of what CIO is looking for, how they make decisions, and what their demographics are, and things like that. Or you may be looking at, I'm trying to get to my general staff. What's that persona look like? Employ some of the things that you do in your sales process, because you effectively are selling as a CEO and you're kicking this thing off. You're selling your vision, you're selling your strategy, you're selling yourself, right? And you need to get, and they need to understand what's in it for me, right? So know your audience. I think the other mistake is people tend to get very detailed in these types of meetings. I've seen it with my own staff, and I've had to kind of pull them back. For example, someone might say, well, they need to know the nuts and bolts of our sales process. I'm like, do they really? I mean, if we're pitching to the overall company, do our consultants really care about the nuts and bolts of the sales process? Just because you care about it every single day doesn't necessarily mean that they do. So I think that people have a tendency to be a little bit kind of myopic in what they do, and think that everybody else cares about that.
When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly. I get sometimes my marketing teams, they want to talk about MQLs and SQLs and this QL, and I'm like, nobody really cares, right? Really, nobody cares. In the end, what they care about is result. Is like, you can talk about some of these things generally, but what's the result you're trying to go to, and why are we making these investments, and how are we going to get these results? That's what people really care about, and then tie those results back to what's in it for them, right? Mm-hmm. And the third aspect, I think, is just don't be boring. I don't think you need to jump up and down like Steve Ballmer, those famous videos. Yeah. But you've got to be compelling. You've got to be you're selling yourself. I mean, think about what you do in a sales meeting. You got a meeting tomorrow with an exciting new customer. You're going to go in. You're going to pitch them on something. What is the tone that you're going to go in there with, and the level of confidence that you're going to go in there with? It's going to change based, that if you walked out of that meeting and then said, okay, I'm going to go have a meeting with my team, your tone's going to be totally changed, right? Yeah. So understand what you're trying to do, and understand that you are selling, and don't be boring.
I think that last point, Sean, can't be emphasized enough, because when you're talking to team members, I know that one of the things that I did years ago, and I'm not saying I'm great at it now, but I actually recorded myself on video, and then I watched myself, and that was so incredibly painful to watch myself looking at the screen. I'm like, oh my God, this is how I'm coming across to people. My voice isn't quite as dynamic as it should be. I know every CEO practices. They rehearse it. They get their timing down. They practice multiple times in the evenings, weekends, just to get their pitch ready. But I think few actually record themselves and look at their own video. And sometimes that little thing can just create a lot of awareness in terms of how your audience, your staff, would be perceiving your energy level. Things that maybe a lot of nonverbal cues there.
Yeah, I think you're dead on that one. If you've ever done like professional speaking training or video training or media training, and I've probably done all of those, they record them, and that's probably the worst day and the most stressful day is actually looking at yourself or being critiqued by others. But you need it. You need it to get better. And if you don't have if you're not going to do that, just know that you go into the mindset that, especially if you're a CEO or VP of sales or something like that, you've pitched deals, right? You've pitched to customers. Get into that mindset, right? Get into like, I am selling right now, and I'm not going to be successful if I'm super boring.
That's right. That energy level, selling every sentence, every word really makes a big difference. Sean, what inspires you? What keeps you going? You've been running your companies for a while. What keeps you going?
Uh, I've done a lot of work on that actually to figure it
Yeah.
out. It really comes down to like four or five things. One is creativity. I love ideas. I love creating new things. I love camaraderie. I love working with people. When I started this company, and every company since then, I've always wanted to work with people. And if it's not, if I was by myself, I worked with customers and I spent a lot of time with my customers. But as we started growing, the idea of working with people, and that's probably been one of the hardest things for me, with the pandemic, is not being able to go into the office as much and be a part of that. And I've actually I now live in Florida. Our headquarters is in Washington, D.C. I fly up there once a month, for a week. And I specifically meet with staff and take my senior leadership out to dinner. We have a standing senior leadership meeting in person required. And I do that as a commitment to keep, make sure that our team keeps that bond. But it's also selfish of me because I like being around my team. I always look forward to that week. Growth is a big thing for me. I love learning new things. I just renovated my beach house. I spent the last 10 months doing that. Literally did everything except for the electrical work, ripped it down to the concrete and rebuilt it inside. And I didn't know a single thing. I did it all on YouTube. So
Wow.
I learned a tremendous number of skills that I have no intention of ever doing again. But that process, as painful as it was going through it, that growth aspect, I just love that. And the last thing for me is really legacy. Like I said, I'm 56 years old. I like to think I'm on the back nine and not the back four. But I always believe that we need to come into this world and leave it better than when we left it, or leave it better than when we came into it. And I think we as entrepreneurs and owners and business leaders have a really phenomenal ability to do that. We have resources at our fingertips that most people don't, and we should use those resources wisely. And I speak a lot about mission-driven capitalism and how important that is for not only the communities we serve and the people that work for us, but also for ourselves and what we can leave behind. So, other things that inspire me: entrepreneurs. I love ideas. I love helping the next generation of entrepreneurs. I'm really inspired by, kind of going off this mission-driven capitalism. I'm really inspired by people who have been wildly successful in their careers and created platforms for good. One person that I really, look up to is Bono, not only because I'm a ginormous U2 fan, but taking his platform and the work that he's done with, the One Foundation and Africa. The guy's literally changed the world, and I think that's things that we should all strive for. We don't have the resources to do what he can do, but we all have the resources to do something.
We all can do something. Absolutely. I like what you said about growth. And I know I totally relate to what you mean by not retiring. This is just, life's an adventure. I also do the same thing. I've, built a handful of companies, sold them. And I also love learning. Tell me, what are some of your favorite books?
My books are, I try to learn something. I try to focus on one thing a quarter, and what I want to learn. So I don't have any necessarily favorite books. One of my probably more favorite books is Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Great
I think
book.
that's a great book. There's also another book by Darren Hardy called Compound Effect, very similar to that. If you're an entrepreneur, Darren wrote a book called The Entrepreneur Roller Coaster. I think that's an excellent book for up and coming entrepreneurs. But I tend to look at books and resources as I need them, right? So like, as I mentioned before, I really want to kind of drive a more metric driven approach to Windward and start measuring all aspects of the business. So I'm kind of knee deep in OKRs and that whole OKR philosophy, and trying to read as many ebooks and regular books and articles and blogs as I can to understand how we could build out something like that effectively.
Yeah. Well, very good. Sean, thanks for your insights, especially on the sales kickoffs for 2023, because, yours is different. A lot of other companies is a bit different too. And I think you've got a lot of wisdom that you've shared. I really appreciate your thoughts. How can listeners reach you or your company?
Sure. They can find me at, on LinkedIn. I'm at Sean M. McDermott. There's two M's. You can email me, sean.mcdermott@windward.com. Our website is windward.com. I have a website, seanmcdermott.me. It's a little bit in shambles right now, but you can always contact me through any of those means.
Very good. Sean, thank you for your insights today. I really appreciated our conversation. I hope our listeners got a lot out of the dialogue about how to do their sales.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.